Hey everyone, welcome to the Reseller Room podcast. We've designed this podcast to help you start and grow your reselling business. We hope that these conversations are valuable to you.
So today we're talking about a topic that may be a bit controversial, at least in our community. And that topic is, how does debt factor into growing a successful reselling business? Our answer might surprise you.
All right, so Chase, quick question before we start talking about debt. I'm curious, what is the biggest purchase you've ever made as a reseller?
Well, some of you may have seen this. We made a series years ago about the original game barn, not the one that I'm now sitting in. But yeah, I bought out a game barn that is about an hour away from me. And there was about 50,000 games, 2,000 or 3,000 consoles, and tons of accessories and randomness. It was 5 game stores that had shut down at COVID, and they just put it all into one game barn and one 40-foot shipping container. So the contents of all of that, through a series of videos, buying stuff along the way, and then one big buy to clear it out. It was a 6-figure deal, and that was far and away the biggest deal I ever made to that point, and still is.
It was so much inventory. It took you years.
Brother, we're not even done with it yet. I think that was 3 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And we've gotten through all of the games, but we still have
Systems and
hundreds of systems, hundreds of controllers that are just out in the shed, like unprocessed. It's job security, I guess.
Yeah, goodness gracious. Never an inventory problem around here. What, comparing that to, so you've been reselling for 47 years, and
Yep, something like that.
As we say, compare that to kind of what was a big deal. Let's say your first, before you made the jump to full-time, when you were part-time,
Yeah.
What was a big deal when you were part-time?
Yeah, so I had some early ventures of like the local hustle, the local run that I would do like every Tuesday with either you or my old buddy Cage. And there was one guy who made a big buy locally who had a pawn shop, and it was like almost drowning him. I think he spent like $7,000 to $10,000 on the overall deal.
Yeah.
And we had a good relationship. I was probably 17 at the time, in high school, part-time business, but still doing pretty good volume. I think 6 figures in sales on Amazon. And I came in and was like, looking at this stuff, I was like, dude, I don't know if this was a good buy.
Yeah.
And I felt terrible. So I went through and said, like, I can give you like my absolute top dollar percentage on everything. I was selling on Amazon at the time, so I could get more than he could get on eBay or at his pawn shop. And I went through and I gave him like, I think it was like $3,800.
$3,000.
$3,800, and he had just nothing but low-end games left after that. And he had spent $7,000 to $10,000, and he went in debt for it, and it was a whole thing. And eventually that literally put him out of business.
Oh.
And he was in business for like 5 years. Seemed like he's doing great.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that a purchase like that would like
drown him.
Yeah. So it's crazy.
So going from a big purchase being $3,800 to where, I mean, you guys will do 6 figures in a month now of purchasing and stuff like that.
That's wild to think about.
It's quite a gap and quite a change over the number of years. So
yes.
Let's talk a little bit about debt. So I just want to I've had some stats here that might define normal for you a little bit, and normal for those of you that are listening.
Context.
Yeah, get some context. So the average American, so this is more personal. This isn't talking business, but when they're taking these stats, they're factoring in people that own businesses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the average American has over $65,000 of consumer debt.
Wow.
$65,000.
Okay.
So this is not counting your house. This is not counting anything that is like the real estate side of it. This is just credit cards, car payments, stuff like that. $65,000. 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So if someone went without pay for 2 weeks, they'd be hurting. They'd be feeling that.
Okay.
And then the third thing is less than 30% of small businesses have no outstanding debt. So that means over 70%, the grand majority, what normal is, it's very normal for businesses to carry some form of debt, whether it's
Mhm.
debt on a building, debt on inventory, debt for operations. I would say it's very normal for
Sure.
businesses to carry on debt. So what role does debt have in your business?
Yeah. Well, I don't have any. I don't have any debt, and that has always been the way that it is for me.
So even because I get it now, like you've got this business, you've got a YouTube channel, you're getting revenue from a couple different places, you've got cash flow, but always, like even starting off, like how did you start a business
Mm.
and grow it without debt?
Yeah. Well, if you've seen some of my older videos from like 7 years ago on Chase After the Right Price, like it's pretty well documented that we were going to garage sales,
Mhm.
and I might have spent on the best day ever like $1,000,
I remember
maybe.
$1,000 was like that bar of like if you could spend $1,000 at garage sales for a day, it was a huge day.
It was a home run day, and that was like the majority of the cash that I had that week to spend on inventory, that was already like building up funds through. Again, my first eBay sale was when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have bills or anything. So I kind of built a collection and built some funds from 8 to 16. And then when I turned 16, 17 is when I started getting more serious about it because I could drive to the sales. And yeah, like it was just always a very small, slow growing business, but it's kind of become a lot more exponential
Yeah.
at this point.
So would you'd buy something with cash, sell it, and I'm assuming you would just reinvest that back into the business then, right? Were you taking a large chunk of the profits as salary back then, or what did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I I did pretty much either grow my collection
Yeah.
of video games, sports cards, Pokemon cards, or put it back into the business, which conveniently I didn't have any bills, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Living with my mom at
being
home.
15, 16 years old. And,
Yeah. Yeah. And food was provided and everything. So like I definitely saw that as an opportunity to like, all right, like I love this. This has potential to gain some legs.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was possible. But yeah, just moved at the speed of cash, like
Wow.
every step of the way.
So why do you think debt is so normal, especially in this industry? I feel like the majority of resellers have some form of debt. That just seems to be a normal thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so normal?
Well, I think there's a lot of things. I mean, probably just about everybody watching by the numbers utilizes debt in some extent. And if you have a business, it looks like 70% or more
Yeah.
have debt. So I think there's a lot of people that manage debt responsibly, and then there's some that manage it completely irresponsibly.
Yeah.
But I think the reason that debt is so intriguing is because opportunities are everywhere.
Yeah.
So early on, right or wrong, right, I had these deals that were $10,000 worth $30,000.
Yeah.
Like I could make 20 grand, but I didn't have $10,000.
Yeah.
So I just didn't buy it. And I think there's pros and cons to that, right? Because that's a pretty obvious opportunity. I probably could have bought it and sold it pretty quick and made some money. But the big thing for me is the risk factor. One, like something could happen. Could get kicked off of Amazon. I've had times where I had to get back on Amazon.
I feel like when people talk about debt, they acknowledge the risk, but they never allow it to apply to them. Like, okay, yeah there's risk, but that's not going to happen to me. But you don't know what's going to happen.
There is most certainly risk, especially if you're selling on Amazon.
Yeah.
They're kicking off sellers left and right for no reason. And I guess they think they have their reasons. A lot of times it's pretty sketchy for the reasons. But the other reason that I personally don't like going into debt for things is that changes the way that you think.
Yeah, it does.
It puts you in a position where you have to make decisions differently, and a lot of times based out of fear, based out of like, I got to get out of this hole. I got, like it just kind of tenses you up. And if you're married, I think it can have that same effect on your spouse. It would on mine.
For sure.
Certainly, like she's very risk averse as well, and that's just something that like as I grew in business and as I've grown, I've never wanted being in debt to be a reason to make a decision or making decisions out of fear, because I think if you have cash flow, freedom, and all these things, like, it gives you the power to make moves when it makes sense.
You don't want to have someone else at the table in that way. Like, when you have debt, you have someone that is at the table speaking into decisions, speaking into how you should grow your business, when you should expand your business, what deals you should make, even if it's subconscious. Maybe it's not loud, maybe the debt is small and you don't feel it outwardly, but there's always that thing in the back of your mind being like, okay, I want to buy this, but I also have this payment that's coming at the end of the month. Okay, I want to buy this, but I need to pay off that card that for some reason, instead of just putting on my debit card, I went and grabbed the credit card. And there's just that factor of, as a business owner, so I do some financial coaching and stuff with some people, and people don't think about that until they're in it. And then when they're in it, they're like, oh man, I never thought it would get like this. Yeah. And it can sneak up. I feel a lot of times there's kind of two things that go into people that go into debt, especially for business debt, is because one, it's just the patient side of it. You have been incredibly patient in growing your business. People see what it is now and they see the scale that it is now. And you've got a team and systems and a buy list and a website and a YouTube channel and all these things. But it didn't start that way.
Oh, no.
It didn't start at that place. You slowly built it day after day, week after week, month after month. And you had patience. And honestly, a lot of businesses and a lot of business owners don't always have that same level of patience. They see that $10,000 deal that can make them 20, and they're like, why would I not jump on this?
Yeah.
And it just requires patience. I feel like that's a big part of why people jump into debt so often.
I think it's patience and comparison. And if I've like affected anybody in that way, I apologize for that, but like it is very easy for me and for others to be like, oh man, they just bought a crazy deal, like for 30 grand and it's worth 70 grand. Like, that's crazy. I can see that. That's amazing. I need to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, like, I mean, I think it's true just about 100% of the time. Like, you should use yourself as the metric, as the scale to compare to. Look at last year, and like, if your goal is to grow your business, grow compared to yourself. Like, don't look outward, look inward as much as possible. Look outward for inspiration and to learn from people. But to compare numbers, compare deals, compare all that is so dangerous and toxic. And I'm speaking from personal experience there.
I mean, social media is a huge factor of that, because you only see, when you're on social media, you're not seeing the grinding of the actual business. Like, you're not seeing the hard times. You're not seeing that month where sales were lower. You're not seeing that Q4 that didn't hit the mark that you were hoping it hit. Like, you're seeing the highlight reel. Yeah. And so if you're comparing to someone else's highlight reel, your grind is going to be hard to continue on. And you see an incredible amount of resellers drop off just because they have this idea of like, oh, my business will look like this, or I'll be able to make this or do this. And when it doesn't, they get discouraged. And so comparing to yourself is a great tip. Like, always looking at where you were, getting 1% better, getting 2% better each and every year is a huge deal. Yeah. So if you've never used debt, that's never been a part of your business, and it's for both of us, it's never been a part of our personal lives either. Like, that's just not something that we want to be a part of, because we just have always felt it affects our relationships, it affects marriage, it affects family. We've seen what it does with 72% plus of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. We've never wanted to do that. It's never been our desire. And some people are in a position where they feel like they can't get out of that. But just talk about some of the planning processes, talk about some of the tactical things that you've done in growing your business to be able to stay kind of cash forward, being able to stay profits and take those things and invest them back into the business. What are some of the things you've done in planning and implementation?
Yeah. So there's a number of things. One is budgeting, like having a sense of like what you can spend each month, personally or in business. Two is like, if you have kind of a big play that you want to do, if you want to get a warehouse, if you want to build a barn, if you want to do whatever, like, plan on it. And, we did a whole build the barn campaign for this, where we're sitting right now. This is the upstairs of a 1,700 square foot barn that we now run the business out of. Before this, we had 4 guys working in a 600 square foot basement in my house. And it took us about, 6 months to save the funds through that, like kind of grinding on Whatnot and doing big auctions and stuff. And it was awesome. It was so rewarding.
Yeah.
And then bought this place free and clear of any debt and cash, and kind of was able to use that just as a launch pad for this to like, and now we're seeing that in the last 2 years that we've been in here. It's like, it's kind of always been a little bit linear with getting some, what is it? Exponential?
Yeah. Exponential growth. Yeah.
I was going to say something different, exponential growth. And now it's like really getting to that part of exponential where it's like, wow, this is amazing. And, it's just been really cool to see that. But again, you can watch my videos from 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
And from 5 years ago, from 3 years ago.
It was a basement, a bedroom, a small little, and I think that's one thing too, is it helps when you pay cash for something and it's yours. Like this building, this property is 100% yours.
Yeah.
And it helps you appreciate what you have. Because this thing is like, you could use more space. That there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like you can always expand it. You can always use more space. But when you have this place and you don't have a mortgage on this property, you don't have anything that's kind of coming up at the beginning of the month, and you can just appreciate what it is. It's a huge change of perspective.
It is.
Where
it's
a
powerful.
lot of people can be in a building and be like, man, I wish I could do something different. I wish I could be in somewhere different. But the way that they've managed their money just doesn't allow them to get there. So
yeah.
And that build the barn, that setting yourself up to do that was not just a 6-month thing. It was 6 years of running a business.
That's true. That's a good point.
To get there. Like build the barn was just to get you over the hump, and it was working really hard, doing a lot of Whatnot sales, moving a lot of inventory. But even if you were like, let's say that in your personal life, you were hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, or even $65,000 of debt, like the average American, you couldn't have pulled this off. That would have been limiting you. Even your personal decisions would have limited your business decisions.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people underestimate. They kind of take their brain and they separate. Well, this is my business, and this is my personal life. People are like, well, I've got business loans, and I've got like, no, you don't. You have loans. Like the bank doesn't care if it's a business or if it's you. It's one thing.
It certainly affects me personally, no matter where the loans or debt are. Yeah.
So it impacts your business in a pretty major way. Talk a little bit about, this is something we've talked about several times, is kind of a business zero. And obviously this has changed throughout the years, and because back 8 years ago, you would have a deal that would come along that might be a couple $1,000s. Where now with this buy list, you guys are having to move like 6 figures of cash, even in a small month to 2 month basis.
Yeah.
How do you maintain that kind of volume and that kind of growth?
Yeah. This is another one of those things that has ramped up. I think it's really smart to have an emergency fund in personal life and in business.
As you continue, what does an emergency fund look like?
Yeah. So personally, like we have basically a 3 to 6 months of expenses.
Yeah.
That is just in an account in case something were to ever happen. Like we're good for 6 months.
And if you have a really, really good deal show up, are you using that money?
No, that is not touchable. That's the goal. So to keep that from being touchable, in my case, I like to have in business. So in business, I'm the same way. Have about a 6-month emergency fund. It's literally in a different account,
different bank, different. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it would take a little bit of time to get that money out. Like it's over there, and then I call it either a business zero or a working capital zero, and that's like that's the account that is touchable, right? So this is a number that like I would love for the checking account to always stay above it. Yeah. But if a big deal comes, it is okay to use that money.
Yeah.
But that's completely separate from the emergency fund. So that has happened multiple times. As we launched the buy list, I think our first month we spent like $180,000.
Yeah. That
we launched it. And that was like, okay, we're going to have to use that working capital budget here. But we know that sales are going to be coming.
And you're immediately going to replenish it. As some of those profits come in, you're going to go back and put money back into that.
100%. And the interesting thing about that is that's kind of the mindset that people have with using debt. But it's not debt.
It's not their. When you're using debt, it's not their money. Yeah.
Right. So it's real cash that's actually there, and it's like there. I would never let that get anywhere close to zero. You know. Yeah. So it's one of those like it actually gives you the freedom to be able to make these moves and decisions responsibly. You know, 3 years ago, I think the working capital zero was $10,000.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where we were making deals on a monthly basis that were around $10,000. So
Yep.
it was like, okay, this needs to start growing. So it grew it to maybe $20,000 the next year, and then it was like, okay, got to get exponential.
Yeah.
Because we're getting the volume that we're buying is really significantly increasing. So, I kind of just grew that like last year. Grew that pretty significantly because it needed to be. So that was like a focus of mine. Personally took a lot less draws out of the business,
Yep.
but did it to grow that and to be able to empower us to launch the buy list and be able to do those things.
So are you just okay saying no to certain things? Like, is that just a part of who you are? Like, if an opportunity comes along and the business isn't at a place where it can do it, do you just let opportunity pass?
I wouldn't say that's who I am.
Okay.
Because it is really hard to say no
Yeah.
to obvious opportunities.
Yeah.
Like, I see the potential. I see the deal. I want the deal.
Yeah.
But I think just wisdom that was poured down to me through Granny, through my mom, through people like that, youth pastors and things, just it has enabled me, I think, to make decisions that are not based out of fear. And so I do say no to things that I don't have cash for, that don't make sense. I say, if this is still available in 6 months,
Yep.
I might be your guy. But yeah, still.
And sometimes they are.
Yeah.
Like, people forget that, like, there's an urgency to a deal sometimes, and you forget, like, when you're running a business, the amount of people that can make a move of that scale is not the same as like trying to get a deal on Facebook Marketplace. Like,
oh yeah,
there's some deals that have sat there for 6 months, and you've been able to go back and be like, hey, I can do this now, and they're like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, still on the table. Yeah, that's been cool when that does happen. Yeah, it's not natural.
No.
And I completely understand for those that just make the deal. Like, I get why you do it.
Yeah.
The opportunity is there, and it's probably worked a lot of the time. I think it's that 1 in 10 or that 1 in 20 time where it doesn't work. Something happens.
Yeah.
And we've had sellers in our Discord get kicked off for reasons that were like, man, that is a bummer. Kicked off at Amazon.
Yeah.
And it's tough when stuff like that happens. And if you don't have debt, you can be like, all right, I'm okay.
It becomes
I can shift.
I forgot what the quote was. It becomes a inconvenience instead of an outright emergency. Like, it's still stressful. Like,
very much so.
Like not having debt, having an emergency fund doesn't eliminate the stress of when bad things happen. But what it does eliminate is the panic.
Yes.
And allows you to still think clearly. Like, with your emergency fund, if you had something happen where, let's say, Amazon got shut down for a month, you would be okay. It would be stressful, but you would be okay. And you'd be able to sit there and think clearly, make decisions clearly without this hounding first of the month is coming around the corner every time. And that's a huge deal to you.
Yeah. And for the same reason, I love having a diversified business too. So because we could ramp up Whatnot, we could ramp up eBay, we could ramp up content. We could, there's a number of things we could do. That being said, I understand businesses that go really hard in one area to dominate it and to become like the one in that area. And I think it works a lot, but it is a little bit more risky because you don't have something to easily fall back on. Yeah.
And like we said, everyone's business is run differently.
100%.
Everyone has different philosophies. Everyone has different approaches. For you, this has worked well. Like, I've gotten to know you not only in this context, but also as a friend. And I've watched how this philosophy has impacted not only the growth of your business, where you've seen incredible growth and incredible blessing in that way, but you've also been able to carry, I've seen business owners that carry the weight of the expectation of business on their shoulders. And you have days and challenges, but like, you don't carry that same weight because you've been able to just grow it at the scale that the business wants to grow. Where I feel so many people, they feel like pressure to grow something beyond where it actually is.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a $50 million business right now.
No.
And you shouldn't have to have the pressure of being a $50 million business in order to keep up with something that you tried to put in motion before it was ready. So if you were talking to someone that is starting off their business and is trying to do it debt free, that is going about it and feels a little bit discouraged, whether it's the comparison or whatever it is, what would you say to that person that's starting off, that is trying to grow their business without debt, without that factor of risk, without that stress?
Yeah. So I was that person. So I would speak to myself of 10, 15 years ago, that it is worth it. I think it is very possible to grow at the speed of cash. We've demonstrated it in the $10 business, 2 series that we had, one on this channel, $10 business, eBay, and then another on Chase After the Right Price, the $10 business, which we used Whatnot and all selling platforms, pretty much just Whatnot. But like, we started with $10 cash and moved it up. But you can also do that through learning. Like, you can start with $10. You can create a real business through that. It's possible. Retro Rick has demonstrated in the $10 game collection.
Yep.
Like, building a collection at the speed of profit. All of this it's been demonstrated. You just have to be a little bit more patient, and it is absolutely worth it. And you can get to the point to be able to grow rapidly within that, but it just takes time. And the way that, it's been a blessing in my life, in my family's life, in the lives of now 5 full-time employees, and the way that God has blessed it, and the way that it's just been amazing.
That's a thing that people don't realize about debt is because you don't have debt as a business owner, you're able to, and this is obviously a core value of who you are, but you're able to demonstrate generosity in a whole different way than if you had $10,000 or $100,000 of debt that was looming over your business. Like, you're able to act on things, you're able to move more quickly, you're able to move at the speed of cash, you're able to bless and kind of care for your employees that you have, and that's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's a blessing to be in that position, and it is truly something that I'm very, very passionate about. My wife is too, and faithful with little, faithful with much is a big one. And it's always been like, if we're not faithful right now, then we're never gonna be. It's just like we're really trying to start that right now, and it's been cool to see what God can do through that.
That's awesome. Well, hey guys, thank you for tuning in. We're glad that you joined us for this conversation. Let us know what you think. Join us in the comments below, or if you haven't, check out our Discord. We're going to be having a conversation on a video call, both with Chase and a bunch of other resellers on this topic. We would love to have you guys be a part of that. You can sign up for the Discord in the link below. We would love to see you in there. Have a great day.
That should be an interesting conversation. Peace.